In the opening scene, our protagonist talks about trash games, pointing out that they are often unfun, lack balance between characters, or suffer from poor mechanics. However, there is another instance of trash games, those with hellish difficulty levels. The virtual reality game The Tower of Trials is a prime example of this. When the game was released, Korean gamers, whose passion was conquering games faster than the developers anticipated, began grinding through the Tower of Trials, often forgoing sleep and food for an entire year. However, by the end of 3 years, players came to the sobering realization that the game was impossible to complete. No exaggeration here. For instance, the gate guardian who protects the 10th floor is truly invincible. Additionally, the 7th floor is set in a polar region with temperatures plunging to -60 degrees, which drains players' HP and can freeze them to death within an hour. On the 8th floor, players are confronted with a labyrinth covering over 10,000 square kilometers. This experience is not enjoyable, it's simply a form of torture. As a result, the game nearly crashed and was almost ruined. Despite that, only a few pro gamers dared to take on the hell difficulty. Jinhyuk Kang was one of them, grinding through every challenge until he reached the very end. After devoting 11 years of his life, our protagonist finally completes the game. A system message popped up. You have conquered the 50th floor. Congratulations, you are the first person to clear the Tower of Trials. Jinhyuk let out a deep sigh of relief, overwhelmed with a whirlwind of emotions. For him, it was simply a thrilling experience. Reflecting on the countless hours spent researching unknown strategies to conquer the tower and repeating them over and over until they became second nature, a deep sense of pride washed over Jinhyuk. He had done something truly difficult and worthwhile. He still couldn't believe he had actually cleared the game. Once his thoughts settled, Jinhyuk realized he should have streamed this moment online or perhaps uploaded his accomplishment to YouTube. A system window popped up, thanking the player for sticking with the game until the very end. Another window appeared, informing the player, "A reboot update is scheduled in 12 hours. Please continue to enjoy the game after the update." The news caught Jinhyuk off guard. He couldn't believe the game was getting an update, especially after all the financial losses it had suffered. Did the administrators strike oil in the middle of a desert or something? He wondered sarcastically. After logging out of the game, the protagonist reflected on his situation. He realized it was time to quit his career as a gamer and live streamer. When he had started, he was just 17, full of ambition. But now, at 27, he could no longer survive on the meager income he earned from gaming and streaming.
That night, Jinhyuk was doing a mukbang livestream, laughing and chatting with his viewers. Everything was going smoothly until his expressions suddenly grew serious. He addressed his audience, saying he had something important to announce. But as the comments started flooding in, he hesitated, stopping mid-sentence. With a casual shrug, he brushed off the topic and continued the stream. In the back of his mind, he decided he'd make the announcement tomorrow. About quitting for good. After finishing the live stream, the protagonist decided to get some good sleep. The next morning, he woke up with a headache and remembered his plan to upload the video of him clearing the 50th floor of Tower of Trials. However, when he checked the news, he was shocked to see the headline, "The Tower of Trials becomes reality." Jinhyuk couldn't believe his eyes. How is this even possible? He thought in disbelief. Desperate for answers, he opened the live chat of the broadcast. On the screen, a massive tower loomed over the heart of Seoul, its shadow stretching across the city. It was unmistakably the Tower of Trials, now towering over reality. The YouTuber reported that Melon Watermelon, the top global organizations, had officially confirmed that the mysterious structure was indeed the Tower of Trials. As he spoke, he suddenly paused and looked up, as if sensing something ominous. At that moment, the screen began to turn red, casting an eerie glow over the broadcast. The tension in the air was palpable. Something was happening. Jinhyuk couldn't believe what he was witnessing. The scene felt all too familiar. It was the same omen that had appeared when he first played Tower of Trials. Memories flooded back, and a chill ran down his spine as he realized that what had once been a game was now unfolding in reality. A status window opened before everyone, including Jinhyuk. The message read, Tower of Trials Reboot Version. The first update has been completed. All players must clear the next floor of the tower within 90 days. Failure to do so will result in the extinction of humanity. Panic erupted in the chat as the weight of the message sank in, and Jinhyuk's heart raced. This was no longer just a game, it was a dire challenge that could affect everyone. Just like that, the game had become a reality. Jinhyuk was momentarily confused, but he quickly gathered his thoughts. If the Tower of Trials had manifested into the real world, he couldn't afford to hesitate. He needed to act fast. Determined, Jinhyuk rose from his chair, which rattled beneath him and toppled over with a loud crash. A system message appeared, informing, the Tower of Trials reboot version has been successfully updated. The protagonist steadied his breath, reminding himself to stay focused and keep his composure. If the Tower of Trials had truly become a reality, he couldn't afford to waste any more time like this. In his mind, he knew exactly where to find a particular item he would need. There was no time to waste, he had to move quickly. Jinhyuk burst through the front door and sprinted down the road, his mind focused on the task ahead. Out of breath, Jinhyuk hurriedly crossed the road and descended the stairs, pushing himself to keep moving despite the exhaustion. In this new reality, where the world might end, Jinhyuk's heart pounded. Not from fear, but from sheer excitement. The scene shifts to the city center, where chaos has already erupted. Crowds of people are panicking, running in all directions. Some are desperately trying to find shelter, while others frantically check their phones. One person is seen struggling to book the fastest train to Busan, their hands shaking as they fumble with the app. Another man shouted above the chaos, "Fleeing to Busan won't be enough. We need to get out of Korea." His voice was filled with desperation as he pushed through the crowd, his panic spreading to those around him. A nearby person held up a phone, displaying a live feed from a foreign country where the Tower of Trials had also appeared. The reality sank in. Towers were emerging all over the world, and no country was safe. "So where can we go?" she exclaimed, panic evident in her voice, as the crowd grew increasingly frantic. "No matter what happens, as long as it's not in Seoul," someone in the crowd shouted, clinging to a sliver of hope as fear washed over the masses. Amidst the chaos, Jinhyuk dashed toward a central underground mall, weaving through the panicked crowd as he focused on his destination. As Jinhyuk stood at the entrance of the underground mall, he reflected, most people are fleeing Seoul, driven by their instinctive fear of the unknown. Yet in every crisis lies an opportunity. This isn't a moment to run, it's a moment to push ahead. As he made his way down the staircase, Jinhyuk remembered that this area outside the tower had been designated as an external zone in the Korean server. In total, there were around 30 such zones scattered throughout the country. He chose this location because it was the nearest external zone available. As Jinhyuk entered the underground mall, a system message flashed before him, announcing that he was now entering an event zone. Jinhyuk squinted as he took in the sight of dozens of people clustered around the fountain. He knew without a doubt that these people were the ones who had played through the early stages of the Tower of Trials. Everyone present glared at one another in silence, tension thick in the air. The tension in the air was palpable, as the item set to appear was limited in quantity. "If we are fortunate, we might manage to secure at most 5. Someone called out from behind, asking, "Are you Jinhyuk Kang?" It was a voice Jinhyuk recognized from before. When Jinhyuk turned to look, he saw a tall man with dyed yellow hair. It was Lee Jung-soo. Lee Jung-soo confirmed it was indeed Jinhyuk Kang, his surprise evident. "I can't believe you're here. I thought you just spent all day locked up in your room playing Tower of Trials." He approached with a grin, clearly intrigued by the unexpected encounter. Lee Jung-soo was a partnered streamer on Pafrika TV, boasting 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. He was also the CEO of the company that Jinhyuk had once been a part of. Jinhyuk asked, "What are you doing here? Isn't it usually time for your live stream?" Jung-soo replied with a smile, "Right now, being here is far more exciting than live streaming." Jung-soo then asked Jinhyuk, "So, what floor did you reach in the Tower of Trials?" He continued, "We should uncover the secrets of the tower together, as former co-workers." Hearing Jung-soo refer to him as a former coworker infuriated Jin-hyuk. Jin-hyuk still remembered how Lee Jung-soo's company had tricked many streamers into signing slave contracts. The more the streamers broadcasted live, the more money they lost to Lee Jung-soo. If anyone attempted to protest, their voices were swiftly silenced by the company's lawyers. As a result of this fraud, Jin-hyuk Kang's best friend, someone he had known from the very beginning, was driven to leave the streaming industry in tears. Pulling Jin-hyuk's shoulder, Lee Jung-soo continued the conversation. "I know you're great at games," he said, "and on top of that, you do mukbang videos. What if we rewrote the contract to put you on better terms?" Disgusted by Jung-soo's words, Jin-hyuk, in a fit of anger, slammed his forehead into Jung-soo's face with such force that 2 of his teeth shattered, causing blood to pour from his mouth. "Don't talk to me so casually, Jung-soo," Jin-hyuk warned, his voice low and threatening. "We're not friends." Jin-hyuk felt a sense of satisfaction from putting Jung-soo in his place. After confronting Jung-soo, Jin-hyuk turned his attention to the fountain, recalling that it was almost time for the tree to appear. The scene shifted to the fountain, where bubbles began to form in the water. Suddenly, a powerful jet of water shot into the air, creating a dramatic spectacle. Trees began to emerge from the fountain, their roots breaking through the surface as they grew taller. In no time at all, a large tree rose before everyone, towering over the crowd. The crowd erupted in excitement at the sight of the massive mangrove tree, its vibrant leaves swaying gently in the air. Jin-hyuk felt a surge of happiness as he realized everything was unfolding just like it had in the Tower of Trials game. It was as if he were living in a dream, the lines between reality and the game blurring around him. Suddenly, a system notification appeared, declaring, "The mangrove of greed has emerged." The mangrove tree bore fruits that glistened in the light. The ripe ones had the ability to enhance strength, agility, stamina, and mana stats, each offering a unique boost to those who consumed them. This is a valuable item, there was no denying that. The problem, however, was that there were only 4 fruits available, and countless competitors eyeing for them. It was bound to be a tough battle. The ability to boost stats in the early stages was an advantage that could not be overlooked. Everyone rushed toward the tree, shouting, "The fruit is mine." Soon, the central underground shopping mall descended into chaos, with people climbing over one another and shoving others aside in their frantic quest for the prized fruits. In frustration, Lee Jung-soo tossed aside the bloodied napkin he had been using to wipe his face and cursed Jin-hyuk for not working together. "If we had teamed up, we could have split the fruits and both benefited. Now, neither of us is going to get anything to boost our stats." Jin-hyuk snapped at Lee Jung-soo to stop talking, clearly annoyed. "You don't know what you're talking about. Now is not the time to act and grab the fruit." On top of the tree, where players scrambled to grab the fruit. In their haste, they shoved one another down, each desperate to reach the coveted prize before anyone else. One player managed to snatch the first fruit and ate it immediately. Instantly, his agility surged by 3 points, showcasing the fruit's powerful effect. Once all the fruits had been consumed, the tree started to tremble violently. Players clung tightly to the branches, struggling to maintain their balance as the tree swayed beneath them. However, the shaking was so intense that players began to lose their grip and tumble down from the tree. Suddenly, the tree began to thrash its branches like whips, striking with such force that it shattered the concrete floor beneath it. One player, shaking with dread, suddenly remembered that in the game, once all the fruits were consumed, the situation turned extremely dangerous. It had been so long since he'd encountered this scenario that he had nearly forgotten. He recalled dying at least 50 times just by remaining in the tree's vicinity. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the players hesitated and began to retreat. Everyone needed to flee. There was no way a level 1 player without a weapon could possibly win a fight against this tree. Jin-hyuk was thoroughly enjoying the spectacle. Lee Jung-soo staggered to his feet and began to make his way toward the exit. Seeing this, Jin-hyuk asked Lee Jung-soo, "Are you really going to give up?" In anger, Lee Jung-soo shot back, "Of course. I don't want to die a pathetic death here." Jin-hyuk casually remarked, "Really? That's a pity, because the real reward of this event can only be obtained by eating all the fruits. Lee Jung-soo was taken aback by this and asked Jin Hyuk, "Is what you're saying really true?" Jin Hyuk responded, "If what I said is fake, then what's the purpose of me being here?" From the beginning, Jung-soo had been wondering why Jin Hyuk wasn't rushing for the fruits like everyone else. Without knowing all the details, it's clear this is a valuable opportunity. Jung-soo mused to himself. Jung-soo looked at Jin Hyuk and asked, "If what you're saying is true, then what's our next move?" The protagonist replied, "We need to attack the Tree of Greed. If we go in individually, we'll be easy targets for the branches. We should charge at the tree from opposite directions at the same time." Jung-soo assured the protagonist, saying, "Don't worry. I have plenty of experience from playing similar games." With determination, Jin Hyuk shouted for Jung-soo to run toward the tree and began sprinting in that direction himself. In an instant, the tree's branches lunged toward Jin Hyuk, who expertly dodged the incoming attacks with swift movements. Jin Hyuk turned his gaze toward Jung-soo, who stood still, laughing and mocking him. "You really trusted me with this plan?" Jung-soo exclaimed. "Go ahead, be the idiot who plays the bait while I reap all the rewards." Jin Hyuk felt a sense of relief, knowing that Jung-soo hadn't changed at all. In reality, it was Jin Hyuk who was toying with Jung-soo. In reality, the true bait was Jung-soo, as the tree's branches always targeted the person standing farthest away. Jung-soo was taken aback by this revelation, but before he could react, several tree branches surged toward him. In an instant, the branches wrapped around Jung-soo, quickly immobilizing him. In desperation, Jung-soo begged the protagonist to save his life. As Jin Hyuk ran toward the tree, he snorted coldly and replied, "Why would I help someone like you? You're nothing but garbage. If you have any problems, take it up with the court and ask your lawyers for help," Jin Hyuk said dismissively. "Now just go to sleep." The mangrove tree's branches began to engulf Jung-soo, and until the very end, he was crying and pleading for help, insisting that he didn't want to die like this. The branches then crushed Jung-soo's body with such force that blood sprayed from the splintered edges of the branches. Jin Hyuk bid farewell to the garbage that was Jung-soo. Jin Hyuk then turned his attention to the mangrove tree, focusing on the task at hand. The tree began to attack Jin Hyuk from all directions, its branches lashing out with ferocious speed. Having played this event countless times, Jin Hyuk knew every attack pattern of the mangrove tree by heart. First, he dodged the tree branches coming in at a 22-degree angle from the left, then quickly evaded another strike at 35 degrees from the right. The relentless rampage of the tree branches continued, but Jin Hyuk expertly evaded every incoming attack. Then, the core of the mangrove tree was revealed, appearing just as it did in the game. As he watched the events unfold, Jin Hyuk felt a wave of relief wash over him, knowing that everything was proceeding just as it had in the game. Dodging attacks from any direction was the easy part. The true difficulty was in maneuvering the incoming strikes to allow Jin Hyuk access to the core of the tree. Jin Hyuk picked up a broken piece of branch lying on the floor, assumed a fighting stance, and challenged the tree to surrender its core. Jin Hyuk explained that the Mangrove of Greed was an event where players didn't earn any experience points. The only reward was a place in the Hall of Fame. Therefore, it was wiser to claim what he wanted rather than engage in a fight to the death with the tree. The mangrove tree let out a deafening roar. A system notification alerted Jin Hyuk that the Mangrove of Greed was activating its skill, Vampire Vine. Dozens of tree trunks shot out simultaneously. No matter how hard Jin Hyuk tried, he couldn't evade them all. Instead of dodging, he focused on deflecting the incoming trunks. With the fragment of the tree trunk held in reverse, Jin Hyuk began to close the distance. As he drew nearer, the speed of the tree's attacks intensified, making his task even more challenging. Here, a single mistake could cost him everything. He couldn't afford to be afraid. He had repeated this scenario countless times in the game, and he knew exactly what to expect. With each step, Jin Hyuk managed to close the distance between himself and the tree's core, determination fueling his every move. As Jin Hyuk neared the tree, it suddenly unleashed thousands of butterflies, which dispersed a cloud of sleeping powder into the surroundings as a protective defense. It's easy to lose consciousness without proper countermeasures. Fortunately, countering the sleeping powder is quite simple. One just needs to hold their breath. Without wasting a moment, Jinhyuk inhaled deeply and instantly held his breath. Finally, through a gap in the tree trunks, the heart of the mangrove tree came into view. This heart was the tree's only weakness. Jinhyuk focused on the heart and with all his strength, thrust his weapon into the mangrove's core. The tree emitted a bone-chilling scream and writhed against Jinhyuk's grip. Using his other hand, he applied even greater pressure to his weapon. Eventually, the screams faded away, and the tree fell silent, remaining motionless. At last, the mangrove tree was defeated. Then, a congratulatory status window popped up, proclaiming, "You are the first to conquer the mangrove of greed." Jinhyuk breathed a sigh of relief. Ultimately, Jinhyuk's relentless dedication to studying attack patterns and researching strategies to defeat the tree paid off, allowing him to conquer this formidable boss. He couldn't help but feel proud of himself. Then, the system window informed Jinhyuk that his achievements would be recorded in the Hall of Fame for the entire day tomorrow. He was prompted to provide his name for the honor. Jinhyuk understood that the unreliable system required personal information for the Hall of Fame. He responded that he had no name to give, and asked for everything that had happened to remain confidential. Jinhyuk was determined to avoid any unwanted attention and didn't want players to discover that he had once been a top player in the Trials of Tower game. In response, the system window opened up, stating that his name would remain unknown, his face would be blurred, and his voice would be altered. Jinhyuk replied, "Do whatever you want, system. I don't care anymore." Jinhyuk accepted the system's terms without hesitation. He approached the cracked tree trunks and plunged his hand deep into the wood, searching intently. At last, he felt something grasp between his fingers. Jinhyuk pulled it out with excitement, revealing a green-colored essence of the tree. Soon, a system window appeared, notifying Jinhyuk that he had obtained a tree essence known as the tree orb. Unlike the 3 stat points gained from the fruit of the tree, consuming the tree orb grants 12 stat points to agility, strength, or magic. This increase is 4 times greater, enhancing any ability by 4 levels. Honestly, there's no item in all 50 floors that holds greater value than this one. Without hesitation, Jinhyuk tossed the orb into his mouth and swallowed it whole. A surge of energy coursed through him. Soon, a vibrant green aura began to form within his body, spreading rapidly and enveloping him completely. The power was undeniable, and he could feel his strength and senses sharpening by the second. Jinhyuk quickly opened the status window, his eyes scanning the familiar interface. The system window displayed Jinhyuk's details with cold precision. Name, Kang Jinhyuk. Sex, male, age 27, level 1 strength, 5 agility, 6 vitality, 7, magic 5. Stat points possessed, class, none. Unique ability, none. Skills, none. Jinhyuk smirked at the status window. Despite being just a level 1 player, possessing 12 stat points made him stronger than most others at his level. An hour later, the Tower of Trials community was buzzing. A message popped up on the forum. The Mangrove of Greed has been defeated for the first time. Anticipation spread like wildfire as players scrambled to refresh the page. Related videos will be uploaded in 10 minutes, the message added. Excitement and disbelief filled the air. No one had expected this event to be cleared so quickly, especially considering how new this real-life version of the game was. All eyes were now on the mysterious player who had conquered the challenge. The moment the video was uploaded, the doubts vanished. The crowd that had been quick to call him a cheater was now stunned into silence. As they watched Jinhyuk masterfully dodge the tree's relentless attacks and strategically take it down, the atmosphere in the chat shifted completely. Comments flooded in. "That's insane. He knew exactly what to do. This guy's not just lucky, he's a genius. No wonder he didn't rush for the fruits. He had the whole thing figured out. Absolute legend. I'd die in 2 seconds doing this." Everyone's reaction aligned, admiration and awe. Jinhyuk's flawless performance silenced his critics and earned him newfound respect. Jinhyuk's eyes widened as he read the comments. The offer from Kingsman, identifying himself as Park Ho-shik, a high-ranking director of a 5-star semiconductor company, caught his attention first. We're offering 10 billion won up front and a monthly salary of 100 million won for an exclusive contract. We'd like you on board. It was a jaw-dropping offer, almost too good to believe. Then came another comment from Dog Dragoon, even more vague but equally tempting. Whatever your demands, we will meet them. If you're interested, contact us directly. Was it really that impressive? He mused. Defeating the mangrove of greed was no easy feat, but he had played this event countless times in the game. Sure, it was a formidable enemy, but he expected a level of admiration, maybe some curiosity, but not this overwhelming response. There might be very few who had reached the mid to later stages of the game, making his expertise incredibly valuable. Given the circumstances, receiving such high-stakes offers was hardly surprising. But the sheer amount being offered left him both puzzled and intrigued. 10 billion won up front and 100 million monthly? What are they expecting in return? He thought, running a hand through his hair. The numbers were staggering, especially for someone who had just started navigating this new reality. They must be desperate, he concluded. But why? Up until the Tower of Trials became a reality, Jinhyuk had struggled to make ends meet. The grind of daily life weighed heavily on him. He often found himself unable to pay rent on time. For a single mukbang video, he had to starve for days, meticulously saving every penny to collect enough money for food and equipment. The thought of his financial struggles haunted him. If the Tower of Trials hadn't become a reality, Jinhyuk would have jumped at the chance to accept offers like 10 billion won without a second thought. The lure of wealth and security was tempting, especially after enduring so much hardship. He was determined to protect the knowledge he had gained through countless hours of game. Jinhyuk was determined to monopolize it for himself. In this new reality, knowledge was power, and understanding the intricacies of the Tower of Trials could spell the difference between success and failure. Then Jinhyuk took out his phone and began searching for the National Museum of Korea, his next destination. The mana from the Tower of Trials began to leak shortly after its creation, dispersing throughout Seoul. While living beings remain unaffected by this mana, the artifacts outside the tower transformed into holy artifacts after absorbing it. Clearly, these artifacts do not originate from the tower. In fact, true legendary artifacts can only be found within the tower, indicating that these artifacts are merely replicas. The National Museum of Korea serves as a vast repository filled with countless artifacts. The real issue is that, unlike the mangrove, which emerged in 7 locations, there's only one museum in Korea, meaning the protagonist is not alone in this endeavor. People from various regions will be drawn to this site, including former top players. Without wasting any time, Jinhyuk made his way to the museum. Upon arrival, a system notification alerted him that he had entered an event area. An eerie silence enveloped the museum, surprising the protagonist, who had expected to encounter former pro players. However, upon discovering the charred remains of a body, Jinhyuk realized that someone had been there before him. Since the world changed, Jinhyuk expected people to adapt, but the gap between expectation and reality was far greater than he had imagined. He never expected people to grow so bold in just one day, to the extent that someone would burn a body in such a gruesome way. Jinhyuk glanced toward the staircase leading up and thought, they're probably after the artifact kept in the medieval classical era gallery. The artifact everyone is after is the Great Map of Korea. Now imbued with mana, the map contains vital information about the Tower of Trials. However, Jinhyuk clearly had no interest in this artifact. This map reveals details about mazes and ruins, including the monsters and items within them. Who wouldn't want such a valuable item? Although the map provides information only up to the 10th floor, it's more than enough to ignite people's hearts with excitement. The scene then shifts to the artifact gallery. The gallery is in chaos. Everyone is fighting with whatever they can grab, each determined to kill the others and claim the artifacts for themselves. In the midst of the chaos, someone shouts for everyone to freeze. Everyone's attention shifts toward that person. The person who shouted was a muscular man who threatened that anyone who dared to move would face his wrath. One person dismissed this as nonsense, while another retorted that no one would back down from such empty threats. Then the person holding a hammer threatened the muscular guy, that if he moved an inch, his head will be smashed by the hammer. Furious at this, the side character clenched his fist, preparing to attack. He retorted that words weren't enough, he would demonstrate his power instead. His arms began to bulk up like the Hulk, causing the fabric of his shirt to tear as his muscles expanded. His skin thickened, resembling steel. Seeing this, one person shouted, "Did he already gain a unique ability?" Another exclaimed, "Shit, that's dangerous." After showing off his unique skill, the muscular man threatened everyone once again, declaring that the map was his. "Who dares to oppose me now?" he challenged. A voice from behind called out to the muscular man, "Who said the map is yours?" The voice belonged to an old man who confidently added, "I can't agree with your claim." Angrily, the muscular man asked, "Are you serious right now, old geezer?" The old man replied, "It's not old geezer. My name is Min Jungwoo, which signifies a life filled with kindness and friendship." Seething with anger, the muscular man spat at the old man. "Get lost, or I'll snap your neck like a twig." The old man shot back. "For someone your age, your mouth is shockingly foul, and your tongue cuts sharper than scissors." Until that moment, the old man had been speaking casually, but then his tone shifted to serious. He asked the muscular man, "What do you think will happen faster? My head getting smashed, or you turning to charcoal?" The old man lifted his hand, channeling mana to his fingertip. Within moments, a blazing fireball ignited, hovering just above his finger, casting a fierce glow. The old man exhaled sharply, sending the fireball blazing toward the muscular man. In an instant, the fire reached the muscular man, and fear flashed visibly in his eyes. As the searing flames consumed him, he thrashed helplessly, his agonized screams echoing through the gallery. All that remained of him was a charred, lifeless body. The old man smirked at the scorched body and said coldly, "Your own tongue brought this misfortune upon you." A voice called out from behind the old man, "Wow, fire magic is really something. I'm glad I teamed up with you." Turning in surprise, the old man replied, "Oh, Miss Lee Yuri, did you find the goods you were looking for? Now I'll leave the situation here in your hands." Lee Yuri confidently assured the old man, "You can trust me to handle the situation." She set the statue of Anubis down on the floor and announced with confidence, "This will be more than enough to keep everyone in line." She then channeled her magic into the statue, and it immediately sprang to life, glowing with a vibrant energy. Anubis towered over everyone as Lee Yuri announced, "Anyone who moves will be deemed an enemy, and Anubis will munch on your head." With a psychopathic smile, she threatened, "Now let's cooperate, shall we?" One person cursed at the unfolding situation, while another lamented, "Why are there so many awakened ones here already?" Everyone tossed aside their weapons and announced, "We surrender. Take the map for yourself." Lee Yuri thanked everyone in a mocking tone, clearly enjoying their submission. Ignoring everything around him, our protagonist was walking toward the artifact. Jin-hyuk was furious to see that all the artifacts had been destroyed. After searching further, he stumbled upon a specific artifact. Jin-hyuk quickly picked up the artifact, relieved to find that it was intact. Yuri Lee fumed at the protagonist's audacity. She commanded Anubis to attack him. Obeying his master's command, Anubis lunged forward, his powerful form surging toward Jin-hyuk with menacing speed. The sphere of Anubis, with its sharp obsidian tip, aimed directly at our protagonist's heart, ready to pierce through flesh and bone with merciless precision. With a single fluid sweep of his hand, Jin-hyuk deflected the sphere with effortless precision, sending it spiraling away as if its deadly power meant nothing before his skill. The sphere struck the ground behind Jin-hyuk with a thunderous impact, carving a deep crater where it landed. The earth cracked beneath it, sending a cloud of dust and splintered stone into the air, marking the raw power it held. Yuri Lee's eyes widened, a look of shock flashing across her face as she took in the full force of the protagonist's power, realizing she had underestimated him entirely. The onlookers were in disbelief. Was it even possible? How could he dodge the spear like that? And astonishingly, his hand remained unscathed. Noting everyone's stunned expressions, Jin-hyuk thought, "They're only reacting this way because they have no clue about my stat points." Jin-hyuk sneered at her, saying, "Now that your little pet sphere is gone, what's your next move?" In an instant, Lee Murray reached into her bag, swiftly retrieving something. She pulled out 4 Anubis statues from her bag and began channeling mana into each one. Jinhyuk's face remained expressionless. Jinhyuk replied nonchalantly, "It's nice, I suppose." Yet, internally, he couldn't help but think that managing 5 statues with such a limited mana pool indicated she was anything but ordinary. Just like that old man who wielded magic, it seemed there were plenty of people around who are no longer rookies. Desperately seeking validation, Lemuri questioned the protagonist. "Is it really just nice?" The protagonist quipped, "I'd say it falls somewhere between decent and nice." Jinhyuk then pulled out the artifact, thinking to himself, "I'll reveal the tremendous gap in power between us, one that she won't be able to comprehend." Jinhyuk then channeled a massive surge of mana into the Pinewood Tiger replica. A colossal tiger emerged from the replica, its powerful muscular frame radiating raw strength. Lightning crackled across its fur, illuminating the darkened gallery with flashes of electricity. The tiger's fierce golden eyes glowed with intensity, and its sharp claws glistened menacingly, ready to pounce. The air around it hummed with energy, amplifying the sense of danger. Lemuri stood frozen, stunned by the sheer size and ferocity of the creature.
Jinhyuk ran his hand over the tiger's powerful back, smirking as he remarked, "How can a mere jackal hope to stand before the king of the mountains?" He then ordered the tiger, "Show no mercy, devour every last jackal." With a thunderous roar, the massive beast stamped the ground, shaking it with immense force. The jackals, undeterred, began charging toward the tiger, their eyes locked onto the massive beast. The jackals' bodies were shredded as easily as sheets of paper, a harrowing testament to the tiger's overwhelming power. Like ants foolishly daring to challenge a dinosaur, the 5 Egyptian guardians fell without a chance to resist, their breaths cut short in an instant. Yuri's body shook uncontrollably, quaking with fear as dread washed over her. With her Anubis statues shattered, Yuri stood in stunned disbelief, unable to fathom that the artifact could be harnessed with such terrifying power. The magic radiating from it was so overwhelming, she could feel it threatening to rip through her very skin. The tiger's deafening roar shook her resolve, and with a trembling sigh, she fell to her knees, her will to fight slipping away. She had believed her plans were the strongest, but now, faced with him, she couldn't help but wonder, who the hell was this guy? Jinhyuk commanded Yuri coldly, "Hand it over." Playing dumb, she tilted her head and asked, "What do you mean?" He responded, his tone unwavering, "I'm talking about the Mask of Tutankhamun." Yuri scoffed, "It's of no use in Korea. How do you expect to use it?" Annoyed, Jinhyuk flicked his finger, signaling the tiger to attack. Terrified, Yuri reluctantly agreed to hand over the mask. A system notification flashed before Jinhyuk, stating that he had successfully obtained the Mask of Tutankhamun. Holding the mask in his hands, Jinhyuk couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement, knowing he now owned 2 powerful artifacts. Yuri couldn't help but wonder, is the protagonist after the Great Map? With a sharp glance, Jinhyuk cut her off. "Stay out of it." Jinhyuk then commanded the mountain tiger, "Guard the area and make sure no one follows me." At his master's command, the tiger let out a deafening roar, its menacing growl serving as a warning to anyone who dared approach. His gaze shifted to the staircase leading to the 3rd floor. He muttered to himself with a quiet laugh. Finally, it's time to claim the strongest skill in the Tower of Trials.